Today's Locked On Bucks. We search for the answers. A very memorable ending for all the wrong reasons. Camille and I get into it coming up next.
You are Locked On Bucks, your daily Milwaukee Bucks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into Locked On Bucks. I'm Justin Garcia, joined as always by Camille Davis. We thank you for checking out the Locked On Bucks newsletter. If you have not done so yet, you can sign up for free at lockedondaily.com. And as always, for making this your first listen each and every day, a listen that was pretty anticipated and is no doubt going to be rough for a lot of Bucks fans after what we witnessed last night. This was a game that the Bucks, I think that was kind of the trend throughout this 3-game losing streak. Your defense has played well enough to win these games, and that has been the constant throughout the season. Against the Cavaliers, I thought your defense was pretty good, all things considered. Against the Pacers, we can point to transition opportunities, and the Pacers were a plus 14.4 in points per 100 in transition. The Bucks were negative. It was 31-3 in fast break points. But all of that said, this is a game where if I give you those numbers last year, it's a game the Bucks lose by 25 last year. Like once Indiana got it to 11,
it's fair.
It doesn't come back from double figures the way the Bucks were constructed last year. So that was quite a sucker punch, the way that this one ended. And I suppose there's a lot to dig into in those final 6 seconds of the game, really, Camille. I mean, we can say, man, what a rough break for the Bucks, but they got breaks leading up to it. I mean, you think about the Andrew Nembhard or Aaron Nesmith missed free throw that basically you felt like we iced the game now. The way you constructed that play to get it into Damian Lillard and burn off some clock, and then it's Dame shooting free throws. So you caught breaks along the way too, but for it to close the way it did, I mean, so let's start with the final play by the Pacers. When you saw how they lined up, what was your immediate thought?
My first thought was I've seen this before, but I couldn't remember when I saw the Pacers do it. I just know that I've seen them do it before. Later on, found out it was in the playoff series against the Celtics the last time that they deployed that one. Yep. And I was just like, okay, we gotta make sure that we don't get lost along the scuffle here because, the Pacers do that to cause confusion. Knowing the game script, knowing that you're up by 3, the way they played it, hearing that Taurean Prince was the guy who was assigned to Haliburton, and he's like, I lost him. Giannis picks him up. My first thought was maybe just play back a little bit more, not at the 3-point line, but don't start picking up people until you're 5 feet or so ahead of the 3-point line. There's not that many guys on that team with extreme range where you're just like, we got to make sure that, we give them a lot of space. That was my first thought. And then also when Giannis did finally contest that shot from Haliburton, it was, I understand what he was trying to do. He was trying to make it a really difficult, even more difficult shot. It was already a tough shot with the way that he caught it, trying to catch it on the move while kind of fading out of bounds. But Giannis has to give him the space to land. Yeah. And when you're up by 3, the one thing you cannot do in that situation is foul. You can't give up a 4-point play when you're up by 3. So for that one, I don't think Giannis touched him in the actual shooting motion. No. I think the foul came in with the landing space around him. You hate to see a ref call that, but by the book, like, I can get it. So
it is. And we see a lot of the comments. I had a lot of them last night on the post game too. It was a foul. He didn't contact him on the shot, but Tyrese Haliburton leaves his feet. Giannis closes out into that landing space. It's a foul.
Got to give him space to land. And then after that, you challenge the play with your last timeout. And that was the piece for me where I just kept going, why did we use the last timeout here? And I can understand if you're hearing from your bench, like he stepped out of bounds. You got to challenge it. I can hear if you're going with your coaching staff, sure. But situationally, it just made more sense to me. You gave that up. Keep your timeout to be able to advance the ball and give yourself a better look at that final shot. That's the piece of it where I was just like, give yourself a shot. Give yourself a better shot. It was a disappointing way for that game to end. Like you said, the Bucks were in it. They were in it. They could have walked away. They could have stolen this game, but instead you get gun punched at the end there with the 4-point play, and then you can't get off a really quality shot at the end there.
Yeah, and we didn't hear from Doc Rivers after that. We had some connection issues in Indiana, fitting that.
Of course,
that was the game where you really want to hear, hey, what happened, basically. And we didn't get it, but I know Eric Name was tweeting out some Doc quotes, and you mentioned, the challenge, and Doc's message basically was, my bench told me he was out of bounds. That thought never even crossed my mind when you were watching the play happen. So it's tough because you want to go with your guys, and especially considering that play happened right in front of the Bucks bench. So if your bench is telling you he stepped out of bounds, I can see where you'd be swayed, but it's 110% certainty I need to know this because of the importance of the timeout. Did he step out of bounds? And then again, another unfortunate blow for the Bucks on that review is the only footage we had was the total zoomed in grainy footage where you can't even see the heel of Tyrese Haliburton's foot. And the other view is obstructed by Brook Lopez on the inbounds pass. So just everything that could go wrong for the Bucks in the final 3 seconds, 3.9 seconds did. I still, having said all that, I think you have to not challenge that play, right? I mean, it's easier to have the benefit of hindsight, but knowing there's 3.9 seconds, we can advance the ball. That's a lot of time to get something, and you don't need a three. You just need a basket at that point, assuming Tyrese Haliburton hits the shot. So call the timeout, advance the ball, get Giannis moving towards the basket, get a clean look for Dame. Easier said than done, the way that they were defending him at times. But you have so many other options that timeout is so very valuable. And I got to tell you, even without not using it to challenge, I think in the order of where I would rank things for how to use the timeout, number one is save it for advancing the ball. Number two to me would have been how long it took for that ball to get inbounded as the play was setting up. And you see there is clear confusion. We haven't seen this in person with Indiana doing this. Use your timeout there to reset your defense and go over, hey, here's what we think they're going to do. Here's how we're defending that. And I mean, we can pick about everything on the inbounds pass, and it's why I really would have liked to have heard from Doc Rivers last night, because a 3-pointer is what the Pacers need. And, you know, I saw people like, well, you can't give up the over-the-top pass. So what? Like,
they need three.
Let them do that. Right.
Yeah.
Like, I wouldn't even had Brook Lopez on the floor. I would have played with 5 switchable players. Don't defend the inbounds pass. Like, you have a free inbound here. Find a guy. We're playing 5-on-4 and we're defending out there. So it's not one thing to point to. It's many things. And now the sucker punch to this is you're in a 3-way tie for 4th place. So the Pistons are still percentage points back of you. You still have that tiebreaker as of now against the Pacers, but it puts a lot of pressure on you now on Saturday that, hey, you were up 2-0 in this regular season series against Indy. A win last night would have clinched that head-to-head tiebreaker. It would have essentially made you 3 games in front of the Pacers right now. Yep. 2 games up in the tiebreaker. And now all of a sudden Indiana snaps their losing streak. They come into town thinking, we can win this. We can avoid losing that tiebreaker and then drag this thing down into, 3 and 4 tiebreakers. So this is all of a sudden a lot of pressure now on the Bucks for that Saturday night game.
It is. And I saw it earlier on the timeline, but if the Pacers do win on Saturday, from my understanding, they clinch the tiebreaker over the Bucks because of divisional record. So
That
on
makes
top
sense.
of
Yeah.
like it's a big game coming up on Saturday, and it's a big game coming up on Thursday, because one thing that I mentioned when this Bucks team was having this hot stretch out of the break, and it was like, we saw them come out of All-Star break last year and go 6-0. We saw it, and then they finished the rest of the month 6-6. They finished April 2-6. What I need to see from the Bucks team this year is the bounce back. I need to see them kind of regain control of that rope, and start putting some more wins back on the board. And it's not going to be easy given the competition that they have in front of them. But it makes me think about this game that they just had against the Pacers, because I saw the fourth quarter live and went back to watch the beginning of the game. So initially when I was looking at the box score in the fourth, and I was like, man, Taurean Prince has really been the offense in this game. Like, what is the story to this? And going back and watching the game and how they ended up in this situation in the fourth quarter, where, it's up by 3, everything that comes down to it, the lead up to that moment of like, how did we get here? There are some things this Bucks team has to clean up going forward, to be able to make sure that they're going to be able to consistently put together better overall efforts. Because for them to have been in the game at the end there was some luck involved based on some of the shots that the Pacers were able to get up along the way.
A lot of discourse about the final shot too, that the Bucks took with 3.4 seconds on the clock at that point.
Something like that.
We'll get into that, but I think the bigger piece is what you just mentioned there too, in some of the usage that we saw throughout the course of this game, and especially in the fourth quarter. So we'll dig into that coming up after this on Locked On Bucks. Your home should reflect your style, and with Wayfair, it's easier than ever to make that happen. Whether you're looking for a simple refresh or tackling a big home project, Wayfair has everything you need in one place. Wayfair's huge selection makes it easy to find the perfect piece, no matter your space or budget. From cozy furniture and stylish decor to kitchen essentials and outdoor must-haves, Wayfair has it all, and at prices that fit your budget. If you're looking for a new rug to tie the room together, Wayfair has so many stylish options and great prices. The site makes it simple to compare styles, and your order arrives fast with free delivery. You'll be surprised to find everything from storage solutions to patio decor, making it your go-to for all things home. Head over to wayfair.com and find something that's just your style today. That is wayfair.com. Wayfair, every style, every home. This message is from our sponsor, Intuit TurboTax. Taxes was waiting and wondering and worrying if you were going to get any money back, and then waiting, wondering, and worrying some more. Now, Taxes is matching with a TurboTax expert who can do your taxes as soon as today. An expert who gives your taxes their undivided attention as they work on your return, while you get real-time updates on their progress so you can focus on your day. An expert who will find you every deduction possible and file every form, every investment, and everything with 100% accuracy. All so you can get the most money back guaranteed. No waiting, no wondering, no worries. Now, this is Taxes. Get an expert now on TurboTax.com. Only available with TurboTax Live full service. Real-time updates only in iOS mobile app. See guarantee details at TurboTax.com/guarantees. So, jokingly kind of threw in there, Camille, it was this the Taurean Prince and Brook Lopez game. Taurean Prince scores 18 points and hits 4 3-pointers. Brook Lopez was your offense in the fourth quarter. I think what we saw from Brook Lopez last night should please a lot of Bucks fans and a lot of our audience that have been clamoring for stop shooting threes and that approach from Brook Lopez. He's largely been used around the basket for the past handful of games. And I went back to look at the numbers because it feels like, I don't know about you, but to me, it just kind of feels like, it doesn't feel like Brook's taking as many threes and he's playing around the rim a lot more. The numbers don't dictate that. Like, there's no change in Brook Lopez's shot profile pre-All-Star break and post-All-Star break, but just the way they've stashed him around the basket, I think, has helped things flow for Giannis. And having those easy outlets and dump offs. But this was a game where Giannis, the Pacers, had no answer really, as we've seen through the years. 9 of 14 from the floor. Damian Lillard took 14 shots. Taurean Prince took 16 shots. So Giannis and Dame combined for 28 shots. Taurean Prince and Brook Lopez combined for 27 shots. Brook Lopez scored 11 points in the fourth quarter, but you know how many shots Giannis and Dame took in the fourth quarter?
It could not have been more than like 4 or 5. They did not shoot the ball many times.
3 total shots in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, that feels about right. It was a lot of other players. The Brook Lopez usage, I thought this was offensively one of those games from Brook Lopez where I'm like, I can get down with this. It was a lot of different mixing in, a lot of pick and roll for him, pick and pop. And I thought that he utilized his size really well in this game. And again, he didn't really force the offense that came to him, which is what I liked about the Brook Lopez game. The Taurean Prince piece of it all, because again, like I mentioned, I saw the fourth quarter first, and then watched the first 3 quarters after that. And I was like,
so did I.
I was like, why is there so much Taurean Prince in this game? And one thing that I did like about what part of why Taurean Prince was so aggressive, the Bucks were trying to make sure that Tyrese Haliburton was in the action, and Haliburton was on Taurean Prince, so they wanted to keep him in the actions a lot. So TP was being aggressive with that, and I'm not mad about that because the Pacers do like to try to stash Haliburton, keep him out of the defensive actions, and let the rest of their team kind of take those assignments on, try to hide Haliburton a bit. And I did like that the Bucks were trying to be like, no, come out here. We want you in these actions. So that I did like. We've been seeing a more aggressive Taurean Prince. Post-game, both TP and Giannis mentioned that they have a growing chemistry with one another and how they trust each other on the various triple handoffs and 2-man actions that they can run. And I'm all for that because you're going to need different guys to have chemistry. You're going to need different guys to step up alongside of Dame and Giannis. It might not be the same guy every night, but you're going to need a couple of guys every game to step up. The thing with Taurean Prince is like some of the shot selections want to get them out of the rotation for him. Like he had one where he kind of caught off triple handoff, came in, did a spin at the free throw line for a fading mid-range shot, and it's like we can take those out. We don't need shots like that. But I do like the aggressiveness, and again, you're going to need certain guys to step up along the way. Wasn't a Kyle Kuzma game.
He was essentially benched.
Yeah, down the stretch there. So you needed Taurean Prince and you needed Brook Lopez, and then ideally you need a guy, hopefully 2 off the bench to also give you something here. And it just, I don't know. Down the stretch, what I did want was a heavier diet of Giannis and Dame. But throughout the game, I can understand why there was so much on Taurean Prince. And again, you needed what Brook did in the fourth to stay connected.
Yeah, I didn't have a problem with using Brook Lopez the way that they did. And I mean, I think it's important for them to find those usages and to have a guy like Brook hovering around the rim. That's not to say that Brook Lopez should not take any more threes. Like you still need that. Yeah, you need that spacing from Brook Lopez. But I like the way that they've started to incorporate him more, where it's if you're going to double onto Giannis, we got a shooter that's one pass away, and we're going to put Brook Lopez under the rim. So we'll start to find the mismatch here. It was just, and I understand, like Rick Carlisle's a smart guy. This was part of the strategy too. Of this is what this team has shifted into is the offense is Giannis and Dame. So can we take both of them out of it and say we're willing to give you the treatment the Bucks gave Grant Williams and say we're fine with those guys taking shots? And that's what we've seen. That's the other thing that stands out is another one that I had to look it up and think it kind of feels like AJ Green is in a shooting funk here and shot 40% last night at 2 of 5, but the numbers also don't back that up. So it just must be the ones that we remember the most. The bigger shots are just not falling right now. And the way the roster is constructed right now, you need 2 things. you need Giannis and Dame to be the two best players out there. So I don't think anything's changed with Giannis. Any series you're in, at least in the Eastern Conference, he's still going to be the best player on the floor. You need Damian Lillard to at least be the third best player on the floor in those series. And you need a consistent third scorer. It doesn't have to be the same guy.
Yep.
Night to night, it can be different. But guys like AJ and Gary Trent Jr. and Taurean Prince, they need to consistently knock down those open looks. Or I think what we've started to kind of slide into and see is that consistent third scorer has been Brook Lopez since these changes to the roster.
Yeah, you've seen it be Brook Lopez, I think, the most consistently. You've seen Taurean Prince have a few, like tonight. Gary Trent Jr. has been another guy who I think prior to him going out with the knee injury, he was like, you could count on Gary Trent to give you, 12, 13 consistently at the very least. And the Bucks are going to need that down the stretch. I think for AJ Green, part of what stands out is because he is getting some really good looks from three. And when he misses the open ones, you're just kind of like, dang, like that. I feel like it should have went. But when you look at the numbers of like how many he still is connecting on, to your point, like he's still knocking them down at a pretty good clip. I think it's just that the misses stand out so much. And when you pair that with the uptick in fouls that we have seen from him since the beginning of the season, there's a lot of conversation around that. But AJ Green is somebody who needs to be out there, who needs to keep putting up the shots. Like, he has to put them up. Like, I like to see AJ Green, get up 4 or 5 threes in a game every single time he's on the court. And I think that that's even more important. Like, we're doing this live on YouTube. I saw a comment come in around like, why is Brook playing more minutes than Sims still? And I think that we've had conversations. I don't think it's in the best interest of anyone for Brook Lopez to consistently playing 35 plus minutes in a game, but you need the spacing that Brook Lopez can provide. We've seen the Sims Giannis lineups, and defenses are picking up on, we're going to just leave Sims on offense and we're going to shrink the floor around him. And without Chris Middleton on the lineup and with the guys that you brought in, Kevin Porter Jr., Kyle Kuzma, Jericho Sims, none of them are known for being plus 3-point shooters. So you're really going to need the guys on the team who have shown the skill to do it consistently, to be that threat, to get those opportunities. And they're going to have to knock them down along the way. You're going to need Brook Lopez. You're going to need Gary Trent Jr. You're going to need Taurean Prince. You're going to need these guys to really knock down those shots. So it's, man, it comes back to just how frustrating of a loss this was to the Pacers, because I saw another comment come through about the turnovers and the open threes that the Bucks defense gave up. And I think that's worth the conversation as well, because that definitely stood out.
So 2 of those things, one specifically stood out to me. We'll get into that conversation coming up after this on Locked On Bucks. Well, when I found out Skims was making underwear for men, I was intrigued. I've heard so much about their quality from friends and family, so I had to give it a try, and I can assure you it lives up to the hype. Maybe you're like me, you've always had issues with underwear, fit, comfort, or just finding the right style. Skims changes all of that. Their men's line offers something for everyone, from boxer briefs to classic briefs, all designed with the perfect balance of style and comfort. I tried the classic briefs, and I'm hooked. These are perfect for an active lifestyle. They move with me, never lose their shape, and they stay in place all day. Whether I'm making the most out of running errands or just making the most out of feeling comfortable, they're the most comfortable and reliable pair of underwear I've ever owned. Plus, the lightweight material feels amazing, almost like you're wearing nothing at all. Shop Skims Men's at skims.com/lockedonnba and at Skims stores. Let them know we sent you after you place your order. Select podcast in the survey and select our show in the drop-down menu that follows. Again, Skims Men's at skims.com/lockedonnba or at Skims stores. So those two stats that were pointed out, I wholeheartedly agree with one of them. Turnovers have been an issue for this team for certainly over the course of this past weekend, and especially against the Indiana Pacers. You are gift wrapping them points when you turn the ball over and put them into transition offense. So I do think that's worth digging into. But in terms of the open shots, I mean, statistically, it is not the case, right? The Bucks are number 10 in wide open looks allowed throughout the course of the season. I think they're 17th or 18th most allowed open looks to defenders or to the opposing team. So bottom half of the league, top half of the league, in other words, of giving up those open looks. I look at open looks more than wide open looks because wide open looks are typically dare shots. And if we look at games played yesterday, we had 4 games, so 8 teams played. Would you care to take a guess where the Bucks ranked in open 3-point attempts allowed to the opponent?
Amongst the 8 games that took place yesterday?
Amongst the 4, so 8 teams, yeah.
Probably like what, 3rd, 4th, somewhere in there?
Number 8. They were the only team that allowed single-digit open looks. They only gave up 4 or 5 open looks to the Pacers. Pacers allowed 16 open looks to the Bucks. So Indiana went 0 of 5 on open looks last night. Now, wide open looks, those are your dare shots. Yeah, the Bucks give up a volume of those, but those are things I can get behind, right? Like, we don't trust this guy to knock down the shot. We're not gonna close out hard. And maybe not closing out hard would have helped you in the final 3 seconds, but we're not closing out to this. Take it. The Pacers shot 36% on those last night. So again, a number that you'll live with, and then I think backs up the let this guy take the shot. That's been the story throughout the case of the season as well. So get the frustration, but I don't think this is as much of a problem as the turnovers have continued to be for this Bucks team. And we mentioned how it just gift wraps points to the Indiana Pacers. Some of it is the stuff where you just think, what are we like? There was at least 3 early in the game. And the one that sticks out the most is Damian Lillard attempting that pocket pass in traffic to Jericho Sims. Like, what are we doing here?
Yeah, that's some interesting statistics right there around the wide open shots. And I was wondering when watching this game, if that was the strategy of we are going to dare them to shots. So we are closing out slow on these rotations because a lot of the shots that it looked like the Bucks were giving up seem to be in that wide open range. So it's interesting to hear how the NBA categorized them, saying like, nope, of all the shots, like only 5 of those were open. Like, it's not that. It looked like rotations were slow. And I was curious as I was watching, it was like, is this by design? Is this what they're looking to do? Put 2 on the ball when they're driving and concede that 3-point shot to the shooters. Like Miles Turner got up a lot of shots from 3 last night. Pascal Siakam got up a lot of shots from 3 last night. For me, those 2, I can get that. But seeing some of the warm-up shots that some of the guards got, it was just kind of like, all right, I wish we could be a little bit tighter. And I'm not sure, again, if that was part of the strategy against the Pacers tonight or if that was just slow rotations. But if it is a team that has some more shooters around them, let's say Cleveland, like what we just saw, where it's like you got to be tight on the rotations. The Cavaliers getting the Bucks into scramble positions caused a lot of open shooters, and Cleveland had a lot of those guys to knock them down. So I just need to see from that defense just better execution at times when it does come to the rotations. But I do agree with you on the turnovers being the bigger problem for this team right now, because when you look at the numbers and you look at the final 3-point shooting numbers and you see like, all right, well, it wasn't that big of a discrepancy here. It was, 1 more made 3. But you look at the fast break numbers and you see like, because the Bucks keep turning the ball over, it's allowing the Pacers to get out and run. We know the Pacers want to run. You cannot hand them possessions in that way. So to get killed in the fast break points, to have so many turnovers along the way, you have to clean that up. It has to be cleaned up. The execution has to be better going forward. You can't live that way. You can't have Gary Trent Jr., with 4 turnovers. Or I'm sorry, not turnover for Gary Trent Jr., but you can't have Kyle Kuzma with 3 turnovers with his usage, where it's like you don't have the ball that much to have 3 turnovers right here. Like, it just has to be cleaned up along the way for them. You want to see Just better execution from this Bucks team.
They are number 7 in the league in turnover rate. That's a good thing. So 7th fewest percentage of their possessions result in a turnover. That's the Bucks numbers through 54 games this season. But in games played since the All-Star break, the Bucks are 21st in that category. So again, it's started to pop up here for this group during this stretch of play. And that's what is really standing out the most with this team is the turnovers. And then in turn, what doing with, gift wrapping the defense or gift wrapping the opponent's offense, those transition opportunities. And for as many strides as the Bucks have made in that regard, like they are still in a better spot defensively in transition, and especially with the changes they've made to this roster. But don't play with fire and don't test that theory. I mean, they still are giving up. They're outside of the bottom 5 now in terms of transition opportunities that they allow, and they're just outside of the middle of the pack in their efficiency on transition defense. But man, when it's coming off of steals, like that's where it starts to become a problem, and that's what we've really, really seen pop up here.
Yeah, we have, and we've had the conversations around the Bucks offense and how that's been lagging behind and hasn't been performing at a level that we hope. And when you look at the turnovers, it's hard to get into rhythms offensively when you're losing possessions in that way, when you're not even able to get a shot attempt up because you are turning the ball over. A lot of the things with the Bucks that I'm seeing right now with how they're constructed, it comes down to execution. Can you execute at a better level? And the slate of games that they have coming up, as we have continued to mention because of what's in front of them and how the standings are shaking out, the competition levels are going to be better, and your margin of errors are going to continue to shrink as you continue to play against better and better competition. So in a sense, this whole stretch that they've been going through in March that they have coming up, it's a really interesting test for this team. I've said it before. I love the competition. I love to see how we stack up. And you're going to continue to see that. And the execution is going to have to continue to improve for this team. Going to need, like we said, Dame and Giannis, they carry the ship. And then you're going to need a couple of other guys to step up every single game. Doesn't have to be the same guys, but you're going to have guys doing that. And then defensively, you have to be rock solid because that's a lot of what you're building on. The whole idea of, trading out Chris, who gives you a bit more offense consistency in that way, bringing more guys in who are younger, athletic, can play the defense. So that has to be good. It has to be going forward for this team.
They have, since the All-Star break, gone from 19th in transition defense efficiency to 24th. So you have to win on the margins, right? Like with the way that you've shaped your team, you're not the most talented team in the league anymore. You're not as talented as the Cleveland Cavaliers, as the Boston Celtics, arguably as the Knicks, with the changes that you've made to this group. So you have to win on the margins, and things like the turnovers and putting your defense in a bad spot. That's shooting yourself in the foot. So that to me is the biggest thing that needs to clean up. The elephant in the room is the fourth quarter offense, which
has continues.
Maybe it's getting better, but it's a quarter of a step forward that you're taking. I think they're up to 29th now for the season as a whole in fourth quarter offense. Defense is still really good, right? And last night it was 27-26, I think. So you feel good about what your defense is doing consistently here, but the lack of the Giannis and Dame pick and rolls that we saw last night, the fourth quarter offense efficiency, the scoring totals that they're putting up in the fourth, these are all things that they need to change as you're getting into the playoffs, and especially once the playoffs are here. A very, very sobering game last night. And as you mentioned too, Camille, the Pacers win on Saturday. Pacers win the head-to-head tiebreaker.
That's that, yeah.
And with your schedule that you have remaining, if that is the case, you are very likely looking at the 5 seed, if not 6, because you're going to all of a sudden run into the same thing with the Detroit Pistons, who I didn't look at their. That's going to be close. So you lose this game, you're going to be 6-8 in division. Pistons still have games left against you. So, I mean, that you lose both games against the Pistons. Right now, Detroit's 4-9. You would then both be 6-9, assuming or worse. So Detroit, it opens the door for them to get the tiebreaker. Then we're talking about the 6th seed. So, look, there's still 18 games left. There's still time to steer this in the right direction and improve these things. As down as many Bucks fans are and disappointed, I do, call me crazy, still feel like this team is set up for the playoffs better than they were a season ago. But again, does that mean an NBA Finals appearance or even a conference Finals appearance? I don't know. But health is the big thing. So clean up some of these things and just continue to be healthy. And frankly, as we've talked about, I don't care if it's 4 or 5 or 6. If you tell me Giannis, Dame, and everybody else is healthy for the playoffs, fine. We'll take our chances with that. But it's these types of things you can control that you need to turn around once we get into the postseason. Continue to leave your thoughts here on a brutal loss for the Bucks, who fall to the Indiana Pacers on the 4-point Tyrese Haliburton play. We'll take a look ahead to the matchup with the Lakers tomorrow. I don't think it's still too early. I don't think the Lakers have submitted their injury report, but I mean, I don't see how LeBron James is going to be playing in it if he was a week to 2. And you may even miss him in the game next week too. So, like, not that the schedule is any less challenging, but those are some breaks you're potentially starting to catch. And I mean, this stretch, Camille, we've talked about it. You have that huge matchup with the Pacers, and then you immediately go into a back-to-back with the Thunder, and then you immediately go into that 5-game West Coast road trip, where that's the other thing we didn't touch on with last night's loss. Bucks are 14-17 on the road now, and those West Coast trips have not treated them kind. So, like, these next 2 games especially are huge for the Bucks.
They really are. They really are. You got to take care of business, and it starts on Thursday. It starts on Thursday. As disappointing as this Pacers loss was, and it truly was disappointing to lose the way that we lost, especially with Tyrese Haliburton being the one to knock down that go-ahead shot in the free throw. You turn your attention and your focus to Thursday now. It's all about the Lakers. It's about trying to slow down Luka and what they have going on. You need to bounce back and get a win, and you're going to be playing against a Lakers team that's also looking to bounce back in a certain sense, because they just lost to the Nets on Monday night and they haven't played since Monday. So you're going to get a pretty well-rested Lakers team, considering the part of the schedule that we're in, and a Bucks team that's now lost 3 straight games. And 2 of those losses came at home. So you want to bounce back. That's what's important for this team right now. I've been preaching consistency. It's what I want to see from this Bucks team down the stretch. And I need to see them bounce back and respond with the game where they can execute at a high level and ultimately get the win. Need to continue building confidence along the road to the playoffs.
The last thing I'll just mention, one of the comments that came in last here, the notion that Giannis needs to involve his teammates more, and look at how Nikola Jokic plays. I mean, my guy, have you not watched Giannis, or especially the last few minutes of the game last night in that feed to Gary Trent Jr. in the corner when he drew in the attention? I don't think we're watching the same player and team, if that's your thought when you come away with. Brutal for the Bucks, though, against the Indiana Pacers on the 4-point Tyrese Haliburton play. We'll get you set for the game against the Lakers coming up a little bit later tonight, early tomorrow, to preview that matchup, and hopefully the Bucks can put an end to this 3-game losing streak. That'll do it for today. For Camille, I'm Justin. We'll talk with you guys once again tomorrow on Locked On Bucks.